All right. I am so excited to be live with my really good friend Jordan Shank, who is the founder and owner of the Shank Group. Jordan, welcome to my live. Thank you so much for coming on
Hello,
today.
hello. How are you?
Now, Jordan, doing good. Jordan and I go way back. I was just thinking about this, Jordan. I think I have known you longer than I haven't known you.
Aw, I think that could definitely be said for me too. Without giving away our ages, our respective ages.
Exactly. That's because we met when we were like probably 10 and now we're like
Exactly.
22, and so
It's what we tell ourselves, right? Now we're just out of college.
exactly, exactly. Well, thank you so much. I know that you are super busy, especially with what you are working and building on. But so that my audience can kind of get to know you a little bit more, can you tell us just a little bit about your journey? How did you get to the place where you started your group? And a little bit about where you are right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jordan Shank here, very honored and blessed to be on this LinkedIn Live with you, Hosanna. Good buddy. And yeah, I just never take it for granted that I get to do these things. So thank you for the invitation. I'm really excited to share. So I run a multi-million dollar life insurance agency. We are partnered with an incredible brokerage out of Asheville, North Carolina. Brokerage that backs us everything we do is called Symmetry Financial Group, also Quility. And my journey into the financial services industry was kind of probably like most people that find themselves in the insurance world, which is probably a little bit bumpy, to be honest with you. I started my career working for financial institutions. I worked for several other insurance companies. At one point, I worked for a hedge fund. I worked for several other financial institutions in their marketing. And so we do product launches and we do recruiting for agents and we do all the things that are associated with that. And it was an incredibly eye-opening experience because I am so grateful for it. I got to see the ins and outs of, what the financial services industry is really all about. It was also an incredibly taxing experience for me, both physically, mentally. It was exhausting. It got to the point where my day, would begin very, very early in the morning and very, very late in the evening, weekends, you name it. Like it was pretty much all consuming. So much so that at 31 years old, I was newly married at the time. The stress of it, the anxiety of it, the pressure cooker that I was living and working under was causing such severe panic attacks that my doctor said, "You're wearing a heart rate monitor 24 hours a day because I want to make sure you don't go into cardiac arrest." So
Oh
this
my
was the
goodness.
background that I found myself in. I think a lot of people, that find themselves into the financial or that are climbing corporate America or that are climbing the ladder or looking to kind of advance in their careers think that the more that I sacrifice, the more that I give up, the more that I'm able to just kind of accept the difficulties that comes with building a career, it'll be worth it one day, right? And there's this kind of metaphorical pot of gold that we think is at the end of the rainbow that we're just going to sacrifice and sacrifice and sacrifice and give ourselves to. And that was the belief system that I had subscribed to. And so 31 years old, wearing a heart rate monitor, tracking every move I make. Thank God nothing ended up happening. And what essentially 6 months after that, my contract was up and they decided to not renew. And so here I was having invested an incredible amount of time, an incredible amount of effort, thinking that this was going to be the way that I, provided for my family and built a legacy for my family, both financially and otherwise. And all just like that, it was gone very, very quickly. And I found myself in a position of needing to replace that income very quickly. Like I said, I was newly married and, young family, growing, all the things. And so that was the backdrop. I felt incredibly defeated. I felt like a failure. I felt like I was watching all my friends' careers just grow and blossom like they were succeeding in every area. They were, buying things and all the fun things that go along with building a successful career. And here I was feeling like I was, taking a couple steps backwards and figuring out, what am I going to do with my life? What does this career pivot mean for me? How am I going to adjust to this? And it was right in that moment where, a acquaintance of mine, Ashley Tarr, had reached out to me and said, "Hey, like, I'm in a similar industry. This is what I'm doing. I don't know if you have any interest, but I'm looking for good people." And that was really the beginning of my journey into the life insurance world. My first thought was, gosh, like, I'm never going back to that again. But this was different because this allowed me to put my stamp on it. This was something that I could own, that I would be able to grow the way that, the vision that I had, and it was aligning with the company. Um, it just provided so many things. And so this was now 8 years ago. And here we are. Now we've got 40, 50 agents that work with us on a monthly basis, many more over the course of the year. And it's provided an incredible, incredible life and incredible opportunity for so many.
Oh my goodness. That is that's amazing. I feel like so many people can relate to working so hard for someone else. Like we've all done it, or we're all doing it. And then you get to that point of burnout, of
Yeah.
like, okay, having to like stop and just really evaluate, do I want to continue doing this for someone else, or is this an opportunity for me to pivot? And I love it, grow with your own vision. And
Mhm.
I love to hear, my goodness, from 0 to 40 to 50, that's a lot. And I'm assuming that in the insurance, you don't probably have all your agents right there with you.
Nope.
You embrace
Yeah.
this hybrid world, this remote world, which I think probably
Mhm.
your industry was kind of some leap, ahead of that curve already. But how did you build that? How did you start from the nothing, 0, and going, okay, what is my vision? What do I want to create? What do I want those working under me to experience? What did that look like? What was
Mhm.
that process as
Mhm.
you started to build your team?
Yeah. Well, I am so incredibly blessed because, we do have a brokerage that I was able to kind of leverage a lot of the systems, a lot of the culture, a lot of the processes. And so that did so much of the heavy lifting in many ways for me, to where I knew I had something that was duplicatable. I knew I had something that, if someone else could do it, I would be able to do it. And I put the same amount of work and effort and focus into it, I would be able to be successful as well. And likewise, if someone that comes after me and does the same thing, they will be able to be successful. So I knew a lot of the heavy lifting practically, was
Yeah.
done, which that is a massive deal, right? Because a lot of other entrepreneurs, they're thinking through, the details of how to actually structure and run a business. And when you have those things kind of, already to some degree in place, it allows you the thinking to answer your question of, like, what do I want this to look like? What do I want this to feel like? What do I want my agents to experience? What do we want our clients to experience ultimately? Like, how do we want to create and craft? And so the first thing I would say to answer your question is that everything we do is incredibly intentional. There's no part of our
Mhm.
process that hasn't been, you know, designed and oftentimes redesigned. I would say that growth in the insurance business is a process of creating and recreating, both your processes, your systems, as well as your culture, because there's always new people coming in. There's always new agents that want to work with you, or so on and so forth. So that was the first thing that I would say is, it was very, very intentional. And I always wanted people to know that, and this is kind of getting to the second point, that they matter as a person more than they matter to the numbers and the metrics of the business, right? That's not to say that numbers are not important. That's not to say that we minimize or don't look at, profitability and helping our agents be profitable, and the profitability of the agency. But it does speak to the fact that people have to know that they have a place at the table regardless of what they bring. And that for me is very, very important. So long as they are getting out of, this business and this opportunity, what they came here for, that is how we measure success. It's not actually based on, who had the number one spot on the leaderboard or who, is making the most amount of money. It's like, how much are we showing up to be able to serve our agents and how well are we doing that? If they are getting out
Right.
of this opportunity in this industry everything that they want, everything that this industry promises, then we are being successful. And so that has always been the yardstick that we've used to kind of measure ourselves by. And I'm really incredibly grateful for the team of people that we've been able to bring in that have helped to create a vision. Because as a leader, you think, all right, this is where I think we're going, and this is what I think, this is kind of how I see, and this is the kind of culture I would want to be a part of. But really, it's the people around you that help to actually create that culture, right? A culture of one person isn't really a team, right? You've got to have those people, and there's people that have been, with the organization from the very, very beginning, which is mind blowing because the insurance industry as a whole, Hosanna, is an incredibly fast turning industry. People come and go, and they, do it for a little while, they leave. It's just the churn rate is quite high. So to have an organization where people come, they stay, they love it, and they're profitable. That's something I'm incredibly grateful for, and that's not something that I can take credit for. It's something that we as a collective team have helped to create.
Wow. That is pretty incredible. I have to say, and I've, worked with so many people and then also just kind of in my own corporate career, could you talk to those leaders, whether it's a CEO, an entrepreneur that's starting, maybe an existing manager? But I think so
Mhm.
often we think, we do have metrics. We are a business. There are things and goals and that need to be met. And I often think that the value of the person is kind of on the back burner if I get to it, but I have to meet this metric. I have to meet this KPI. I have to make sure this much revenue is coming in. Where
Mhm.
actually, if we flip it and focus, those things will come. So, from just like a very practical
Yeah.
standpoint, could you talk to that person that is struggling with that? Like, Hosanna and Jordan, I actually have this goal and this pressure. How can I, spend my energy on valuing when I really need to get this outcome?
Mhm. Gosh, what a great question. Here, my best response, and I don't know that I've had it perfectly figured out. I've learned some things along the way. I've made a lot of mistakes in this. And I've kind of learned some things that may work better than others. But the thing that comes to my mind is that valuing people and expressing how much that relationship means within the context of a work setting, a professional setting, like we're working together, absolutely in no way comes at the cost of a lower standard of performance. We're not talking about saying, valuing a person more than, that we have valuing the actual business, because if we do that, then we may not actually have a business. But
Right.
understanding that that person has to know that at a fundamental level that I am for them, like that in every
Mm,
area I am for them, I am for their family, I am for helping them succeed. And anything by way of feedback, by way of KPIs, by way of actually holding people to a standard is meant to help them accomplish those things, right? Like this is a conversation we have very, very early and very, very often. Like, you are not here for me. Let's be clear about this. You are not here for me. I am here for you. You tell me what you want, and then we're crafting a plan for that to happen. But when we want something from people, it changes the way that we interact with them. When we want something for people, that is the kind of culture that we want to create. We want more for them than we want from them. And because that is true, and because we talk about this and make this very clear, it makes holding people to a standard much, much easier because people understand, man, Jordan's for us. Like all the other leaders, I could go down the list, Amy and Tim and Jennifer and all the other people that Kyle and Krista, everybody who is leaders within the organization, they know these people are for me, even though we're actually running a business. So I think in summary, it really depends on the intent that you bring, and personality plays a huge role in this, right? There's some people
Right.
that are just pioneering and like the visionary and those kinds of personality types, like we need them doing that kind of thing. But coming around people and advocating for people and fighting for people, that's a skill just like anything else that they need to learn within the business. And that's certainly something that I had to as well. So, and I'm still learning, to be honest with
Right. I know, work in progress, right?
you. Yeah,
Now,
absolutely.
I'm going to kind of touch on that. Like, it is a skill that has to be learned. I think early on
Mhm.
in my career, I thought, oh my goodness, I'm just going to, I'll be able to figure it out. I have this team, and I can't really admit that I'm not 100% sure what I'm doing because I don't want other people to think that I'm not competent in that. How did you, as you
Mhm.
were starting out, what did that look like? Like, who did you surround yourself with, whether it was podcast, books, actual mentors, coaches? Like,
Mm.
what do you do just on a very practical level just to make sure you yourself are continuing to grow as a leader?
Mm. Gosh, like this is such a huge thing that I think leaders miss, is that your team and your business will not outgrow your own level of personal growth, like and your own level of personal development. If you
Mhm.
want your team to grow, you've got to be the one leading the charge in personal development. So for me specifically, I think early in my journey in the business, I had, there were several people within the organization that I looked to that I had certainly quite a good deal of support from, people that I could, bounce ideas by, people that I would trust to kind of give insight around. But I was a huge kind of believer in getting coaching from outside of that, outside of people that I might have a business relationship with. Not because there's anything wrong with that, but just because there is something really amazing and clarifying about fresh eyes. And so I think for as long as I've been in this industry, I've either had a coach that has not been directly, there's no direct business relationship with, but somebody who's completely neutral. And that some of the best decisions that I've made, some of the best like pieces of advice that I've
Mhm.
gotten have come through that. Tim O'Neill is one of them. Ryan Blair, who ran a very large direct sales organization, he's got an incredible company now called AlterCall. He was an incredible mentor for me. And then also just like reading every single day. I'm a huge, believer in the power of routine and habits, and so personal development for me, I wasn't raised in an environment where we read Tony Robbins or we listened to a pod. Like that was very far
Yeah.
away from the culture that I grew up in. And so getting into sales and getting into business, I started to realize, man, I need more tools in the toolbox than just, my mom thinks I'm great, right? Like there's got to be more things that I am able to like kind of latch onto. And so really just became a student of sales, became a student of the business, became a student of how are these successful people doing it. And that's what's amazing is that this was the common denominator, is a relentless pursuit of growing themselves, um, and investing into that. Like here, I heard this great quote, Hosanna. I can't remember where I saw it or who said it, so I apologize for not being able to give credit. But they said something to the effect of, "If you're going to bet on yourself, you better invest in yourself." And I think that is so true for
Mm.
entrepreneurs because we go, I'm going to bet on myself and I'm just going to go all in on my skills. And then they don't actually go, okay, I need to invest into coaching. I need to invest into someone who can actually help me do this. Like you've got all the confidence in the world, but if you don't actually invest in yourself to where the result is going to be there, you're setting yourself up for a world of hurt. And so for me, like working with people at different phases and throughout the entire journey, it's definitely been a constant. And it's something that I 100% attribute a lot of the success to is, having people in my corner that I can call out of the blue and say, hey, what are your thoughts on this? How would you handle this? What am I missing? And
Right.
being able and being willing to be self-aware in that is huge.
Yeah. Yeah. That's incredible. Yeah. It's so important. I was just thinking this morning as I was getting ready, I was kind of wrestling through some different things like, oh, how am I going to do this or this? And as I was getting ready, the same thing. I was like, you know what? I need someone talking to me and reminding me of what my mindset should be and stop listening to myself. So podcast went on as I did my hair, my
Yep,
makeup, and by the end of it,
absolutely.
I go, okay, that's exactly right. Like this is the vision. This is where we're going. Here we go. Let's take
Yeah,
charge of today. And you've got
yeah,
this. Yeah.
yeah. And I think
I
the
love it.
advice that I would give, like, just the audience a little bit is, like, pick your people. You know what I mean? Because there's so much
Yeah.
content out there that some of it is, when this person says this and this person says that. Like, it feels like for every person saying you should be, jumping in an ice bath at 4 in the morning, there's somebody else saying, don't. Like, there's literally like you name it, you can probably find the information that you want to have. And so the strategy, like, that I've always used, just like limit the options, limit the people, and know the kind of content that helps me, be at my best every day. So, but yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Podcasts are huge.
That's a really good point because it is so true. It's so easy to just get scrolling. And even, I mean, there is just in the day and age that we're at, there's so much information. And I really like that. There's value in finding your people and stay right there for a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Stay
it's
in
hard
the
because
lane.
so many people are very loud in trying to get their message across and trying to, advocate for what they, how their point of view. And just because they say it loudly doesn't mean it's correct. And oftentimes you've got to filter that through, your own lens and apply it to your own life. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so going back to your team. You
Mhm.
said, I mean, 40, 50, that is a pretty good size team. As you
Mhm.
scaled, how have you been able to keep your culture? Like, how have you been
Mm.
able to continue to have these high performers and especially in this remote world, like
Yeah.
collaboration and team morale? What does that look like?
Yeah. Well, and I'm so glad you brought us back to that because the remote world, if I can speak to that for a second, the insurance industry is notoriously stuck in about a decade behind where we're actually at, right? Like, it's an industry that up until right now, quite frankly, has evolved slowly. And I think there's a lot of reasons for it. And not all of them are bad, of course.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't have the reputation of being a very fast moving industry. And so if you think back to 2020, COVID happens. And I know this is back in the day when I would actually meet with clients either in my own office or in their homes if they preferred that. Agents, we had, meetings all over the place and so on and so forth. So you can imagine, like, thinking back to that is how our business model was. We do conferences and boot camps and all these things, and then we'd also be seeing clients live and in person. Then within, a very short period of time, that all went away. And, my initial thought, Hosanna, was like, I'm just gonna wait this probably like a lot of agents, like, I'm just gonna
Good.
just ride this out, right? I'm not gonna
Yeah.
really learn. Zoom was not a thing. Like, no one knew what Zoom was, right? No one knew what, any kind of virtual technology really was. And I kind of was like, all right, I'll give this a week and I'm just gonna take the week off and, you know, push papers around and pretend to be busy. And, a week turns into 2 weeks, which turns into multiple time, and you're like, "Whoa, wow, like, this is here to stay." Like, whatever anyone's thoughts around, COVID, obviously it was an incredibly challenging time to be in business. Um, but I kind of realized, all right, this is kind of a grow and evolve, or your business ain't gonna make it kind of situation. Like, we need to
Right.
we need to adjust here.
figure out what we're
And
doing.
so
Yeah.
the first thing that I did was, really encourage the team to embrace being a beginner again. Like everything that you've known about this business may have changed, which means that we don't have the luxury of being able to run it the same way. Therefore, to be successful in this kind of environment is we are going to have to learn and grow. Like that is just going to be a requirement. We talk about it all the time. We talk about personal development. Now is this is the test. This is the time to do that. So that there's a lot of conversations. It was also being really patient because growth and change is hard. It's not easy for anyone. People are like, I love change. I love it. And I'm like, I don't think that's true.
Right.
You may have grown to love it, but I don't know of anyone who's just like, oh yeah, let's have a pandemic and let's totally reorder everything that we do. Like no one thinks about that.
Right.
So there's a side of it, Hosanna, where I think the way we talk about it, encouraging people to think like a beginner again, leading the way and going, hey, this is the direction, like everything that we wanted out of this business is still possible. Here's the way that we're going to do it. And being very patient with people as they process through all that is very, very important. And then finally, I guess, just looking for the opportunity in it. And now, 4 years later, 20 now here we are at the end of 2024. We look back and we sell in a virtual environment. People get to write the same amount of business. They get to help the same number of families build the same business. They don't have to leave their home. How amazing is that?
Yeah.
They get to work across state lines, whereas previously we were limited by geography. Now all those things are gone. We're able to work time zones away, states away. We've even had people that live in other countries that are working. Like the usual things that were limitations on our capacity as an agency, certainly as a company, kind of were peeled back. And so leaning into that growth has meant an incredible opportunity for us. From a culture perspective, that has been the most amazing part of this is watching the culture that we work so hard for be preserved, and finding fun ways to stay connected. So during the initial phases of COVID, we had so many fun, like just virtual events that we would do and just crazy stuff to keep people connected. And now obviously we're back, seeing each other and hanging out and building a really fun relationship. But yeah, it was just a lot of patience is what I would say. A lot of
Yeah.
patience for people, a lot of understanding. Change is hard for everybody, but change can be much better in the long run, it turns out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. I think to your point, like it was a hard period of time, but it was also a great period of time because it opened up a whole new door of opportunity that had we not been faced with this challenge, would we have gone down this road?
Absolutely.
And I love it.
Absolutely.
And now your team's everywhere.
Yeah. Everywhere. Yeah. I mean, we've got agents in, literally from Washington State all the way. I'm here in Virginia, opposite coast, everywhere in between. So.
Oh, that is
amazing.
awesome. Well, Jordan, our time is wrapping up. If people wanted to connect with you or just know what's going on in your world, what's the best way that they could do that?
Yeah, the best social platform for me is LinkedIn, Jordan D. Shank, and come find me there, connect with me. And yeah, that's definitely the best place to find me.
All right, awesome. Well, Jordan, thank you so much for coming on today, and hopefully we can do it again soon. But I hope you have a great rest of your Monday, and thank you for just sharing all of your wisdom. It was so incredibly helpful, even for me, inspiring, and just a good reminder of let's continue to push ourselves and surround ourselves with people that believe in us, but let's also be that for those who are on our teams or in our sphere as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, thank you, Jordan.